According to the special prosecutor, Carrie Morrissey, in the Rust movie shooting accident, actors are never allowed to point guns at anyone ever under any circumstances. I'm reading the motion, the state's response to the motion dismissed for failing to allege a crime. This was a motion from a couple of weeks ago. Anyways, here's the sentence I'm referring to. Mr. Baldwin was simply not permitted to point the gun at another person and pull the trigger regardless of the quality of the prior checks of the gun. So even if it's empty, even if it's been checked 100 times, the actor, even if they personally check it themselves, whatever, they're still not allowed, according to this sentence. Now, there's a little bit of contradiction if you read the rest of this. She says, well, especially when they don't participate in a safety check, or especially when it's a blocking scene, or especially when the gun handler doesn't verify the status. So she's a little bit contradictory in some of the things that she says here. But in this sentence here, she says plainly, Mr. Baldwin was simply not permitted to point the gun at another person and pull the trigger regardless of the quality of the prior checks of the gun. All right. So let's put this to the test against Gettysburg. You guys remember Gettysburg and the Chamberlain bayonet charge, right? I mean, great scene here. Let's check this out.
Does everybody understand?
Yes, sir.
Right. Ellis, you take the left wing, and when I give the command, I want the whole regiment to go forward, swinging down to the right.
All right, sir. Fine.
I love this part.
Move.
I love that. What a great line by Jeff Daniels. Bayonets. Great music too. I love that. Okay. Anyways. So, okay, how'd they film this? I mean, am I to believe that every actor in this whole line of people, they've got tons and tons and tons of extras acting. We're going to look at how they made this in a second. I'm to believe that every single one of these actors personally verified the gun and never pointed it at anyone, that they were held to these standards, that they were never permitted to point it at another person and pull the trigger regardless of the safety checks. Am I really to believe that that's how that was done? And that never really means never in an absolute sense, or does it just mean, most of the time under the vast majority of circumstances? But surely there are special circumstances where you can do it, right? Okay, so I found this, I was surfing the other day, and I ran across this making of Gettysburg 30 years later anniversary. Gettysburg was made in 1993, 1994. So this is a relatively recent kind of reminiscing about the making of Gettysburg. And I found a really interesting clip in here that's very relevant to this. Let's listen to this, because this is really quite insightful here. Let's listen to what this person coming up says.
Uncles and cousins own the same units. So when they say Joshua Chamberlain with his brother Tom, that's not unusual. And when a unit's wiped out in a battle, a town is wiped out in a battle, and brothers are killed side by side, and fathers and sons are killed side by side.
He's talking about how they pan across with the camera
during the Civil War.
So we set up a bunch of tracking shots where the cameras went in front of the men on the line. We had them fire into the cameras. I didn't care for it when they leveled their rifles at us and fired, because I've been around firearms my whole life, and you never point a firearm at anybody.
And the first thing
Okay, now, you never point a firearm at anyone except they did it then. I mean, a plain reading of this is that never doesn't mean never under any conceivable circumstance, right? And that's my reading of this. Obviously, there are exceptions. There's exceptions to every rule in life. Never almost never means never. Anyway, so that was interesting for him to say. I've been around guns my whole life, and my dad taught me the first rule of gun safety is never point a gun at anybody. But yet he did it anyways in that scene. Why? Because obviously it's different here. You're not deer hunting. Let's listen to it again, just for fun. Now, to be fair, right after that, they talk about safety and things like that. But and the director talks about how safe they were, and how there was a real emphasis on safety. Let's let this go again.
So we set up a bunch of tracking shots where the cameras went in front of the men on the line.
They're
They
shooting
had to fire into the cameras. I didn't care for it when they leveled their rifles at us and fired, because I've been around firearms my whole life, and you never point a firearm at anybody.
And the first thing I would say,
Now he's talking about safety.
today we're not going to hurt anybody.
Okay, good.
There's going to be no mistakes made.
No mistakes.
That's going to hurt a human being or an animal. We all on board with that? Safety.
Let's not forget they had a lot of horses on Gettysburg too, so horses are another safety concern. At least a gun is an inanimate object, so you can kind of control it, right? But a horse is a living animal. You never really know what they're going to do.
Safety. Every morning we had that conversation because we were living on a very, very hazardous set.
So I think that's kind of standard now. You're supposed to have a safety briefing every morning. I don't know if that was, this is 1993, okay, so rules might have been a little bit different back then, but still.
We had muskets with real bayonets.
Real bayonets.
Muskets that could fire live ammunition.
Live ammunition.
Real
bullets.
That could
Real
shoot
bullets.
live ammunition.
So when you showed up at this,
They're running now. Okay, let's forget about the live ammunition for a second. They've got real bayonets. They're running downhill over rocks and over people, okay, and through trees with guns with real bayonets on them, right? What if somebody stumbles and stabs somebody with a bayonet? Then what happens? Somebody get charged with involuntary manslaughter then? I mean, is the bayonet handler supposed to personally verify the status of the bayonet? Well, it's a real bayonet, so now what? Right.
base camp off to
I think I've
my
kind of
left
covered.
here.
I don't think there's
You
anything.
didn't know what you were going to do. Didn't know if you're going to get a Union uniform. Didn't know if you're going to get a Confederate uniform. We got to fire cannons, but we had to be trained for that. There was a man from Colorado, Virgil Hughes, that taught us about safety.
I do remember that
This is good.
at one point they did all the hand-to-hand fighting in the company that we were in. So they had stunt actors in there, and then stunt actors came in. They were jumping around and fighting, swinging rubber rifles. And
Rubber
anyway,
rifles.
so I'm on the ground with my head down on the ground.
I mean, look at this. Now he's saying that some of these were stunt actors with rubber muskets and rubber bayonets, but for the most part, except in some special cases, they were real
I'm not
bayonets.
doing anything. I'm just
That's a real firing
fighting over
real.
me. And at one point,
they
I
have
was
a
like,
bullet in it.
what's going on? And I looked up, and at the moment I looked up, somebody hit a real rifle. It spun like a top, hit me right in the jaw. I was like,
Got hit right in the jaw with a real rifle. So much for this. Nobody's gonna get hurt doing this, right? I mean, he got smacked in the face with a rifle, and there's real bayonets flying all over the place. I don't know. I mean, there was an emphasis on safety. The director kind of took responsibility for safety. Notice they didn't try to pin this on an actor or something. Anyways, I thought that was interesting in light of, Carrie Morrissey claiming that you can never, ever point a gun at anyone, even regardless of the status of the safety checks. You just cannot do it. And it obviously does happen, and it happened. We're looking at one specific movie. I could quote you and point you to hundreds of movies where this does happen. This is just one that we're looking at. Thank you.